on the lives of all of us that I think we'll all agree that it certainly deserves our attention now and then. And we're anxious on this program, since we do critically examine so many other industries, we feel obliged to critically examine our own, even though occasionally it may be somewhat difficult for us to be objective since I work here. But we've got an attorney at law with us who is making some noise in Washington as president of an outfit called Public Communication Incorporated. You're sort of you work for Nicholas Johnson, who for a long time has been described as the maverick of the FCC, and I would say not the most popular personality among the broadcasting community.
No, I think that's true.
Okay, let's. You're also kind of marching forward under the banner of counter commercials.
That's one of the things we do. Yeah.
Okay. Set it up for me. What essentially? Just give me the philosophy first, okay?
Well, basically, what we've set up is an advertising agency for the people. We do research. We do research on things people ought to know about: unsafe cars, drugs, what's in them, and we put them into commercial format messages, television, print, radio, and we communicate them. We tell people the things they ought to know that they don't know now, because they aren't being told over television.
So you would want to do under what circumstances do you think the broadcaster is obliged to put your material on the air?
We think that if a public interest group has the money to buy it on the air, then the broadcaster ought to sell it, no questions asked.
Anything?
Oh, well, unless it's indecent or obscene.
You can't sell it. You wouldn't sell it to a militant who says blow up your local post office.
If that violates the First Amendment, a clear and present danger, no. But you wouldn't sell time to Bristol Myers to say that either.
Okay.
Same standards. In other words, if General Motors and Ford can buy time, then Ralph Nader ought to be able to buy time too.
Right. Suppose you made a spot which said, Whammo cereal causes gallstones. Now, would the broadcaster be obliged to put that on the air?
Well, if Whammo made a cereal and did a spot that said Whammo cereal doesn't cause gallstones, what would the broadcaster do? He'd ask him for its proof. And they would ask us for our proof, and we'd give it.
And then so you have a bunch of experts disagreeing.
If the experts are in disagreement, that might be a reason for not running the spot.
And you have the broadcaster in the middle, potentially more government control, huh? Doesn't that bother you a little bit?
No.
Government control of this industry doesn't bother you?
Well, there's no alternative. It's been that way for 40 years. The government tries to stay out as much as it can. And basically, the government stays out of advertising. That's left to the Federal Trade Commission once in a while and the broadcaster.
Among other things, it is Attorney at Law Tracy Weston's view that broadcasting as the most effective vehicle of communication, mass communication, ought to communicate more effectively with, for example, poor people who need to learn their legal rights in regard to credit. I think we'll agree that it's pretty well established. There's no argument that poor, semi-educated minority folks are often the people who are most abused simply because of the fact that they don't know their own rights. Yeah. A lot of people who get loans, for example, are ripped off because they don't appreciate that they might have bankruptcy opportunities. What are welfare mothers' rights, legal assistance, consumer protection, and many other issues. Yeah. So here come the do-gooders from Washington. I don't say that derisively. And they're saying, okay, broadcasting, you have an obligation not only to serve Bristol Myers and Procter & Gamble and General Motors and all these other folks, you have an obligation to make this magic instrument over which you have stewardship available to other kinds of messages.
That's right.
Can I give you one example of the kind? Now, he's producing commercials. I don't know if you want to call them that. Set this up for us, the engine mounts.
Well, since 1966, 1 out of every 2 cars built in this country have been recalled for a safety problem. That means that if you've got a car built since '66, there's a 50% chance it's been recalled. Now, most people don't know whether they're driving a dangerous car or one that could be fixed free of charge. So we decided to take the most important engine recall problem and put it into a commercial using Burt Lancaster. And that's the one we've got.
Roll film. A counter commercial. If you were a broadcaster, would you accept it?
1969 Chevrolet, the 1969 Camaro, the 1969 Nova, the 1968 Chevrolet, the 1968 Camaro, the 1968 Nova, the the 1967 Chevrolet, the 1967 Camaro, the 1967 Nova, the 1966 Chevrolet, the 1966 Nova, the 1965 Chevrolet, the 1965 Nova. If you have one of these Chevrolets, it could cost you your life. They were built with potentially faulty engine mounts. If one breaks, it could jam the accelerator wide open and knock out your power brakes at the same time. Several thousand accidents have been reported and some deaths have been alleged. Now, General Motors has announced they won't give you new engine mounts, but they will install a free safety cable. If you have one of these cars, I urge you, get it to a Chevrolet serviceman. Slowly.
That's important.
Yeah,
People-
but let's
people
let's
ought to
see.
know that.
Yes, okay, but it's not.
Isn't that more important than Smokey the Bear?
I want to know whether it's interesting that you. I don't know. You know, if you live in Aspen, Colorado.
If you're Smokey. He doesn't drive. Right?
Tell me, you say several thousand accidents have been reported. Now, why did you say several? Why such a kind of foggy term? And can you, what does several mean? Does it mean 6,000 or 2,000? And can you prove that those accidents were the direct result of the faulty engine mounts?
Yes.
And isn't this a little bit of, don't you lack specificity in that
That
claim?
information is taken from the Department of Transportation files, and they've documented it.
Okay. Now, just to muddy your mind a little bit, and this is important, and I'll shut up and give you the shot here. Consider the dilemma of the broadcaster. Now, if the broadcaster has to go out and do a spot that says the world is flat every time someone says that it's round, the broadcaster's concern is, one, we're going to have more clutter, two, will Procter & Gamble and General Motors and all these other big folks be interested in television as an advertising vehicle, knowing or fearing that the spot that follows theirs is going to be one that shoots them down? An industry which has already lost $230 million a year because it can't advertise cigarettes, an industry that paid $18 million just to cover the conventions in Miami last year, an industry that has to pay an enormous amount of money to support news departments which do not make money, wants to know how in the world can it possibly survive if people like this are successful in getting counter commercials on the air all day long when we already, according to the public, have too many commercials now. Interesting dilemma. Tracy Weston, president of Public Communications Incorporated, and we hope that on this program you'll join us.
You're now in touch with the Phil Donahue Show. Phil and his guests join you in just a moment.